Horizon, an original Wizard 101 story by OnTheHorizon.com. Chapter 3, The Warehouse, narrated by Daniel Deathcaster.
Girlfriend, I don't know what to tell you, said Scarlet Fairy Dust as she hovered next to Scarlet Doonstaff by the fountain. I don't know what that was in there, what kind of shield he was using, and... The poor girl looked exasperated as she rubbed her forehead. Since when are novas made of fire? I don't know, Scarlet Doonstaff muttered between her own hands that were holding her head in place. Me either. The girl looked at her friend, then looked back towards the alley. Tell you what, if you figure out something, let me know. I'll be at my house, sipping something fruity by the pool. Okay. Scarlet Doonstaff could barely look up to say goodbye. It felt as though her mind was about to spin out of her head. Thanks anyways. Her friend managed a wary smile. No problem, Scar. You know I would do anything for you. I just don't know what that is just yet. They nodded in agreement, and parted the ways shortly after. Scarlet could see from her compass that she had made it home safely. Part of her was inclined to join her friend by the pool, but she was far too determined to give up so easily. A deep sigh escaped her, allowing more relief to seep into her throbbing head. I know it's there, but how do I get the key? The mission seemed simple enough. At least it had started out that way. Some kind of distress call came from Triton Alley that Professor Hailstone Belstrom couldn't make heads or tails out of. I need you to go to Krakatopia with this message. Croc? Scarlet asked in mild disbelief. She was never a fan of the sands of Krakatopia. She had been assigned there in her earlier days as she was moving up the ranks in Ravenwood. The natives of Croc had constantly stirred trouble, and she was appointed to their world to stomp out the ruckus. The food there always stayed hot. Fresh vegetables languished under the hot Krakatopian sun, while sweets like pudding and ice cream evaporated before it got served. Every day she'd check her boots for any sand or beetles, or worse, that may have found its way in. She hadn't looked forward to going, but she went. She was obligated to help out the school whenever it necessitated. Professor Belstrom advised her to go speak to the Mander at the library there, Zane. Surely his scrolls would be able to decipher the words. But to her and the Mander's surprise, he didn't know what to make of it. Take it to Alizred. He is wise and would know what it means. A heavy sigh escaped her as she felt herself deflating in the hot, torrid heat. Okay. And again, off Scarlet went. The short boat ride to where the balance school was located felt like it took forever. But it was more than likely her lack of patience that had caused time to stand still. A few moments later, she had made her way down the rickety ladder to the underground level of the school. Said the old croc as he studied the symbols carefully. This is beyond my interpretation. Oh, grief, Scarlet thought to herself as she held back a flurry of retorts. Beyond my interpretation, young wizard, but it is not beyond total understanding, he said as he eyed her body language. The old croc then explained to her about the Stone of Mazarath and told her the rock should be able to clear up the message. And I thought my days of rock hunting were over when I got my Master Artisan badge. The stone, of course, had been stolen, which had not been a surprise to Scarlet since Croc hadn't changed much since she had left. The culprit had been hiding out in the Jesuit family tomb in the Storm Temple, which still wasn't as shocking as it sounded. So, you have come for the stone, young weakling, hissed the crocodilian prince, Buiku Jesuit. Look, just hand it over nicely. Don't make me wear you. And out of the corner of Scarlet's eye came a creature that she had never seen before, not in any place in the spiral. Foolish mortal, if you think you can take it, then do so, the squid whispered. Scarlet's nerves had been so raw from the blazing heat that every inch of her was itching for a fight. Her trident seemed to sense this and began to hum in her hand. Before she could clearly think of the spell, her mighty frost giant appeared and lowered its heavy hammer on the prince and its cord. As Scarlet stepped over their twitching bodies towards the stone, she had noticed something odd in the appearance of the object. As many stones as she had collected in the past for her crafting assignments, this seemed a little out of the ordinary. The stone was polished in one area, but noticeably cracked down the length. From the circumference of the stone, Scarlet concluded that a huge piece was missing. Foolish wizard,
the Krakatilian prince managed to say as he slowly turned to her, still convulsing on the stone floor. What you're just now realizing is that I had split the stone into 3. His body began to fade away with the sands in the tomb. You'll never get your hands on it now. Scarlet's anger caused her to quickly turn to strike, but her trident only met the floor. He was gone. She teleported back to Ravenwood to explain to Professor Bellstrom what had happened. The poor frog looked mortified as his small hands traced a jagged crack in the stone. Wait, I think I can find the other pieces by channeling the stone's energy. After a few long moments, he came up with the other 2 locations, Mushu in the Village of Sorrow and the Crucible in Dragonspire. Take this stone with you. It shall guide you to the exact locations of the others. A new sense of determination burned inside her as she shrunk the large stone into a more manageable size. She felt as keen as an arrow on an archer's bow being aimed at its primary target. I'm on it, Scarlet had said to the professor as she made her way to Mushu. The battle that ensued in the small cottage in Mushu was nothing in comparison to what had happened in the temple on Croc. The Rouge ninja pig, Zarichi, was stronger than the Croc Cotillion prince, Buiku. And to match his strength, the ninja had more reinforcements with him to guard his piece of the stone. More of the same squid-like creatures flanked the pig's side as they stood to protect their prize. You may have bested that prissy Croc, but you will find that I'm an unbeatable opponent, he said as he swung his large machete over his shoulder, preparing himself to strike. And you, sir, will find that I'm a big fan of bacon, smiled Scarlet as she gripped her humming trident, readying herself to do the same. What? Enough of these words, all the squids chanted as they moved around Scarlet. Cease her existence! It was 4 against 1, so Scarlet knew that her odds of coming out of this were going to be slim to none. In her mind, her best chance was to keep shielding herself as much as possible and wait to strike with her giant. She cast every shield she had in her arsenal to protect herself from the coming assaults. When the moment was right, she began to summon him, but for some reason, whether it was poor digestion, hiccups, or her usual short temper, her spell fizzled. Her stomach flipped at the sight of smoke puffing from her trident. Her opponents witnessed the misfire, snickering at her obvious misfortune. You should be called Doomstaff with that hat trick. Zarichi laughed along with the others. But their round of fun was soon short-lived. They fizzled as well. Dim sum, Scarlet chuckled. What? Roared Zarichi, but he and the others were soon silenced when Scarlet successfully summoned the Frost Giant. The giant's heavy hammer left her enemies stunned and her defenseless since she hadn't enough power to summon him again. This is going to be tight. As she prepared herself for their retaliation, Duncan, Giant Hunter, teleported to her side to assist. He managed to conjure a strong blizzard to beat the attackers into submission. Thanks, Duncan. He nodded to her and then left as quickly as he came. Scarlet walked over and picked up the missing stone. As she put the stone with the other, she could feel the stone pulling her. I know, Dragonspire. And so she went into a small, war-torn facility in Dragonspire's academy. Figures, she thought as she walked up the steps to the old building. Someone from the Titan army must be trying to start up another war. But Scarlet soon realized that it wasn't the case. As she walked inside, she heard some heated words being exchanged between a woman and someone else. Must be another squid, she assumed, since that was what she had been fighting all day. As she approached the voices, she noticed that their conversation had turned. This was not part of the deal! Cried out the woman. Sure enough, as Scarlet turned the corner, she was confronted with 4 of those same creatures. They had surrounded the woman, who was protecting their piece of the stone. Fool, you will never get your hands on this! Again with the small talk, Scarlet said as she prepared to strike. They moved around her, sizing her up to take her down. Scarlet noticed in this battle that the woman was not an eager participant like the Croc and the ninja, yet she was not running away either. Something must have changed in their deal. With the experience she had gained from fighting them before, Scarlet was able to swiftly end the conflict. She built up enough strength in her Frost Giant to tackle them down, then followed up with a blizzard just as Duncan Giant Hunter had done. They were on the run. When the battle had finished, the woman came out from hiding with the stone in her hands. Sorry about that.
I was never much of a fighter. She introduced herself as Vesna Shadowscar. Although she was dressed in some pretty strong dragon armor, the woman did not have the same harmful intentions that Scarlet usually saw in the eyes of the various generals she had fought in Dragonspire. They gave me some gold to watch this thing and, well, considering how the war had went, I was in no position to refuse their offer. Scarlet understood. The war had taken a toll on a lot of people. Not only were lives lost and friendships torn, but the financial end of it was pretty taxing. Not many profited from the outcome. The woman handed the stone to Scarlet, who took it and placed it with the others. "I can put that together for you if you'd like," asked the woman. Scarlet, looking around to see if there was anyone else in the room, handed the 3 stones to her. With a wave of Vesna's wand, the 3 turned into one large piece. The stone hummed loudly, as if it were pleased to be whole again. Scarlet took the message and placed it against the stone.
Mayday! Mayday! This is Thurston Plunkett, representing the Spiral Geographic Society, seeking assistance. Our survey expedition is stranded on Celestia. We are under attack! Send help immediately! The Umbra Queen has returned! It is the work of Morph!
Plunkett? Umbra Queen? And the work of who? "Thanks," Scarlet said, with a courteous nod to Vesna, then teleported back to Ravenwood. As he presented the stone to Professor Bellstrom, he took the message and began to play it back. The stress on his face was even more apparent than when this quest began. "Scarlet, there's no time to waste! You must go to Marleybone, to the warehouse of the Geological Society, and retrieve the spiral key that will open up Celestia." Celestia? This had to be that different place the drunken fool at the tavern had spoken of. It spun a new hope in her that Boris Ghostcaller and Esme Downcloud had somehow found their way there. They have to be there. Without another word, Scarlet flew out of the school towards the spiral gates. She put in the key for her destination and was instantly stepping onto the cobblestone streets of Marleybone. Her lioness, Sabrina, seemed focused on Scarlet's urgency. Her heavy claws dug into the path that led them straight to the warehouse. "Interesting," said Scarlet as she eyed the structure. She had been down the street several times before in search of Malister Meowrity. She was also in the district a few weeks ago looking for some furniture for her new apartment. Neither time had she seen this building. Something is up to something. But what that something was, she wasn't certain. Considering what she had been through that day, she wasn't taking any chances. She looked at her compass to see who was near. No, not him. But her friend Fairy Dust was available and came to her aid. She had brought reinforcements to help also. That's how Scarlet's day had started. After they fought their way through, it ended with her sitting by the fountain with no celestial key, and wondering how she was going to get back in. Her lioness sat by her feet, expectantly looking for some sort of command. But Scarlet had none to give, since she didn't know what her plan was herself. She was still sitting with her head in her hands, trying to figure out her next move. As her mind began to clear, an oddly familiar tingling sensation shot down her spine. She didn't have to look up to know who it was, but she did make note of the boots he was wearing. "Are those new shoes, John?"